Komets Corner is presented by Lee's Famous Recipe.
Well, if the ECHL season ended today, you've got the Komets and the Heartlanders going head-to-head in the first-round playoff series, and you know what? It's only fitting because Fort Wayne certainly has no love lost for the folks in Coralville, Iowa. As you can see right here, a lot of skirmishes going on, as you might expect, when these two going head-to-head in a three-game set over the weekend. Komets taking 3 of 6 points and inching oh so close to locking up an ECHL playoff spot. And with that, we'd like to welcome in Shane Albarani, fresh off of the trip to Coralville, Iowa.
Literally fresh off the bus.
Exactly. I'm very curious. How many hours of sleep did you get when you rolled back into Fort Wayne?
I'm probably working on about 5 hours right now. Not too bad. Not too bad. We got in at about 2 a.m. This morning, so not too bad.
You know what? That's not too awful. I've got a young boy at home, and you know I'm running on what 3-4 hours of sleep. So all right, we are going to be restless together. That's okay though, because you know what? This time of the year, it is definitely restless just knowing we've only got 3 weeks left in the regular season. 9 games left. Yeah. Komets with that magic number of 2 points to locking up a playoff spot.
Yeah, you know what? It feels like, you know, we should be coming to the end, but still 9 games. That's an awful lot of hockey still yet to be played and a lot of points out there. But like you said, you're 2 points away. The Komets could have clinched the spot this weekend with a win yesterday and everyone else helping us out, which didn't happen. So, but again, it's 2 points. You know, you're probably going to lock it up next weekend. Fingers crossed that everything goes well. But no, it was a fun weekend out in Iowa. You know, a little disappointing. We couldn't get that win. You know, in a 11-round shootout. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. But you know, anything can happen there. But no, it was a good. There's really no way getting around that we're not going to play Iowa in the first round. It's just who's going to have home ice. Komets, I think, has got a 5-point lead right now with a game in hand. So they're in good place to claim home ice as well. But it's going to be a terrific series. It's 2 very evenly matched teams. What we saw this weekend, that was a playoff preview, and really looking forward to it.
We'll break down each matchup from the weekend, but overall, what do you take away from this weekend? Like you said, you were hoping that you would come away with 4 points. You have to settle for 3. Great back and forth game, and especially knowing a lot of the faces from the Komets got called up to Bakersfield, kind of like what you and Glenn were talking about last week. A lot of faces were being tweaked in and out of the lineup, still trying to find themselves as we get to the home stretch of the regular season.
Yeah, you know, the Komets really missed Kyle Mayhew this weekend. You know, he's the best defenseman in the league, and when you lose a guy like that who runs your power play, he leads the league in points among defensemen. He also plays great defense, but he's an offensive defenseman, and also Ethan Keppen as well, and Darren Brady is still up in Bakersfield. So you've got 2 of your best defensemen out of the lineup and one of your better forwards as well. So you kind of felt that a little bit this weekend, but also Iowa, they had guys caught up to who were actually, they got everyone sent down before the game on Friday. Komets win that one, and then Iowa takes everyone back up. So it was a kind of unique thing for both teams to kind of juggle their lineup for all 3 games. Yeah, you know, you kind of have to prepare like those guys aren't coming back. I mean, you got to, because if you look at Edmonton is beat up, which means Bakersfield is beat up. Right now, the Komets are the only team that's really healthy as far as injuries, but we're getting guys called up. So, you know, the coaching staff is saying, hey, this could be a long-term thing, so we need to prepare to have this lineup going into the final weeks of the season or maybe into the playoffs.
If you take a look, probably one positive takeaway from this weekend and really the last couple of weeks, the special teams, in particular the penalty kill. I saw one stat, 15 straight penalties killed. That number might be a little bit bigger after I got to double check the math there. But I mean, just how great has the PK been for the Komets, especially over this past weekend?
Yeah, no, the PK has been great. Even the power play has been pretty good. You know, they're bumped up into the top 10 in the league. The power play has kind of jumped up and down throughout the year. But you know, those stats, it's kind of an overrated stat, especially when you get into the playoffs, because you're not going to get as many power play chances. You're not going to skate down as much in the playoffs. You know, referees are going to let things go. They want these games decided 5-on-5 hockey unless it's a totally egregious penalty. So you kind of throw those numbers out. You know, it's nice to have those going here in the end of the season, you know, but, you know, when you're looking at the big picture going to the playoffs, you know what, it's what you do 5-on-5 that really matters.
So when you take a look, let's go ahead and roll back on the highlights from over the weekend. Komets winning Game 1 on Friday in a 4-1 victory. Kind of a tight game early on, but really the Komets in that one, kind of unlike the other games that you'll see later on, they actually got off to a good start in this one, really set the tone for what would be a pretty back-and-forth weekend with Iowa.
Yeah, Blake Murray, we picked him up at the trade deadline, 3 o'clock on Thursday while we're on the bus heading to Iowa. He manages to get to the rink early in the morning on Friday. Participated morning skate, then he goes out and he scores the first goal of the game on Friday. So a great deal for the Komets, picking him up from Adirondack via Atlanta. And yeah, the Komets got off to a good start. It's a different team when they get this first goal. I think there's 22 wins when they score the first goal of the game. So it was nice to get off to a good start. And you know what? We didn't get off to a good start Saturday and Sunday, and it played into it. So when we have that lead, this is a very strong team, especially in the third period. The team is a plus 25, I think, in the third period, which is a crazy stat considering they're almost even in periods 1 and 2 in goal differential. So it shows you the Komets have got that third period prowess, but they haven't come from behind and won a lot of games when trailing in the third period. They're just getting those insurance goals in the third period because they get a lead in the first period.
A couple of the other guys who have really stood out, especially with guys like Ethan Keppen, Mayhew getting called up, guys like Krankovic, Zach Jordan, those guys finding a way to score over the weekend. Just what have you liked from those two, especially this past weekend?
Yeah, those guys are all mid-season or late pickups, and it shows the evolution of this roster that Coach Jesse Kalicki is always looking to improve his team. Some of the moves that were made, may not have been popular at the time, but it was for the best for this team. Zach Jordan is a terrific power forward. He's a good complement to an Ethan Keppen, especially when Ethan Keppen is not in the lineup. And Krankovic, there's not very many guys in this league that can skate with Jack Gorniak and even Alex Aliardi. So you put him with those two. I mean, it's a very, very deadly line. And then you get Blake Murray, who is a pure center, which is something we have not had since Odin Tufto was injured. And remember, Odin Tufto is going to come back. So now you've got two solid centermen, Nick Deacon Poot, who has evolved into a really good centerman. So now you've got three solid guys taking faceoffs.
Defensively, I know you just saw the game-winning shootout goal from Iowa, but man, we got an absolute treat from the Bro Show on Sunday. Like you said, 11-round shootout. Broach stopping what? All but 2 of those shots.
Yes.
Not to mention the Komets defense doing a really good job of limiting those shots on goal in Sunday's game. Again, just what can you say about the level of play that you have seen from Broach this season?
He's been fantastic. He's very quietly becoming one of the best goalies in this league. And he plays with such intensity and such a chip on his shoulder. Here's a guy who had an amazing career in juniors, and he was overlooked in the NHL. He kind of thought that, hey, maybe late rounds, an NHL team will take a flyer on me. That didn't happen. So, he went into going into a pro last year, being the third goalie. He was behind 2 contracted goaltenders. So he knew he was not going to get a lot of playing time, but he was going to make the best of what he had, and he was going to be the best teammate that he possibly could, and he was. And here we are a few months later. He gets called up at the end of the season. He went up to Manitoba in the AHL to get a look, and then Edmonton, they saw it, and they signed him to an AHL contract, and he got into an NHL exhibition game, with Connor McDavid. To have that in a year's time, that to happen to Brett Brochu is fantastic because he's a fantastic kid. And, I think the league is finally are waking up, seeing that Brett Brochu is one of the best guys in this league, and they don't want to face him.
Well, I know Komets fans are certainly glad that he is lining up between the pipes right now for the Orange and Black. Offensively, we kind of talked about how the Komets need to assume that some of these AHL call-ups are not going to be back in time for the postseason. So what do you want to see offensively as the Komets continue to find ways to tweak their system and make sure some of these late-season pickups are playing at their best once the playoffs roll around?
Yeah, the Komets are really good on the rush. Scoring on the rush is going to be really important. You've got the legs out there. You've got a Jack Gorniak. You got Alex Aliardi. You got Nick Deacon Poot. You got Blake Murray now. You got all these guys, really good skaters. Brandon McManus, who's also got a great shot. So when the Komets establish the zone, when they're in the offensive zone, teams are stacking up on us. They're putting 3 guys around the goaltender, and it's impossible to get anything through. They've kind of figured that out on us over the last couple months. But when the Komets are on the rush, they're dangerous. They're very hard to stop, but then it just comes down to chemistry, knowing where guys are and guys connecting, and those couple touch passes. We saw that this weekend. Another inch or 2 here and there, we win all 3 games because we just didn't score off the rush. So I would like to see more of that, but again, that's just going to come down to chemistry. It's just come down to practice. We're going to have more games. The Komets are comfortable. They're going to make the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of positioning. So the team can tweak the lineup. We can figure out what the line combinations are going to be, and when we get Kyle Mayhew and Darren Brady and all these guys back, and Ethan Keppen and maybe Alex Swetlikoff, that's just a bonus, So we want to go into the playoffs saying, hey, this is going to be our lineup, and we're going to be ready to go regardless of who we're playing or who is on the ice.
So on that note, let's go ahead and take a look at the updated ECHL Central Division standings, or we can go ahead and take a look at the schedule too. Hey, only 2 games this weekend too, so a nice little breather for the Komets. 2 games against Bloomington, and if my eyes don't mistake me, Shane, we've got a home game coming up on Saturday. First time in forever.
Yeah, 7 straight road games. The longest road trip of the season ends in Bloomington on Friday. And the Komets are 2-0 against Bloomington. And we're going to play Bloomington 4 times out of the last 9 games. And Bloomington right now is in the 4th and final playoff spot. So the Komets are actually going to decide who Toledo gets to play.
I mean, just knowing one of the games, I believe it was, a 5-0 loss, or at least one point it was a 5-0 game against Kalamazoo. Maybe the Komets want to see if Kalamazoo can sneak in the playoffs. But, hey, that just goes to your point that in this division, I mean, you cannot take a night off. Every single team still mathematically alive for a playoff spot. So the Komets need to find a way to take care of business on their end. And there is a look at the updated division standings. Komets still not mathematically out of position for the Central Division title. However, we have seen how good the Komets have played on the road this season, so not necessarily a bad thing. Like you said, Shane, just a 4-point advantage for the Komets over Iowa, but they do have a game in hand, and that magic number now down to 2 points. So the Komets could theoretically lock up that playoff spot with a win at Bloomington on Friday. So, any last thoughts, Shane, as we wrap things up? Again, a big weekend. Only 9 games left. We're coming down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, but still, there's a lot of points out there. And now, not getting that extra point in Iowa now makes a difference, because now you are fighting for home ice in the first round of the playoffs, which is something you obviously want. So, so the Komets are still playing for something, even though comfortable with getting that spot. But getting home ice advantage is something that Coach Jesse Kalicki has preached to the guys all season long. We want to have home ice in that first round. It's very important. So they're going to keep on plugging away. And again, they're playing, every team they're playing is playing for something. There's no team that's playing out the string right now, because you're going to see Bloomington 4 times. You got Indy twice. They're right in the mix, and which has been a great series. Komets are 7-2 against Indy this year. Then you got Kalamazoo. The Komets have played pretty much even up with Kalamazoo. You got 1 game up there on a Tuesday night. Then you've got Cincinnati, who is still also alive. So it is going to be fun. These next 9 games, I think, seeing what the other teams bring out, but also seeing how the Komets are juggling the lineup and getting, their best possible lineup going into the stretch.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to have a royal good time at the Coliseum on Saturday. And I'm only saying that because it is Princess Night. I saw a look at the tickets right now. It's going to be filled to the gills at the Jungle, and especially because the Komets have barely played at the Jungle this month. So it should be a great time as the Komets are taking on Bloomington. But for one last time, that is Shane Albarani. I'm Josh A., and I should have mentioned that at the top, filling in for Glenn Marini. Once again, on behalf of Shane Albarani, we want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of Komets Corner, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe.
Komets Corner is presented by Lee's Famous Recipe.